Mark Cavendish has solidified himself as one of the world's greatest ever cyclists following a spectacular win at the Tour de France.
And there he is celebrating. It is an extraordinary achievement. The 39-year-old broke the stage wins record in his 35th victory, just a year after crashing out of the race with a broken collarbone. Jane Dougal has this report.
This is the reason he kept competing.
Cavendish! It's done! The story is finally complete!
At the age of 39, Mark Cavendish now holds the record for the most stage wins in cycling's greatest race. Battling so hard, his chain came off as he crossed the line. Known as the greatest sprinter the Tour de France has ever seen, he now has a special place in its history. The record of 34 stage wins had been held by Eddy Merckx for 4 decades. Cavendish drew level with him in 2021, but then fought illness, injuries and depression, eventually announcing that last year would be his final Tour de France. But any hopes of winning a stage and beating the record were ended suddenly when he crashed and broke his collarbone. Cavendish delayed retirement for 1 more year, and so the crowds gathered to gain a vantage point as Stage 5 reached its crescendo.
Look at Mark Cavendish, beautifully placed in
He burst clear of the pack to take a record 35th stage win.
No one has ever done it better!
It was back in 2008 that the rider from the Isle of Man won his first, earning himself the nickname the Manx Missile.
BBC Sports Personality of the Year is Mark Cavendish.
He went on to win international acclaim and was knighted last month. But in cycling circles, this achievement will be seen as his finest. Mark Cavendish and his family sharing the dream of a fitting final chapter. Jane Dougal, BBC News.
What a wonderful image that is. Let's talk to 3-time Olympic gold medal winning cyclist Ed Clancy, and more importantly, really, a friend of Mark's for a very long time. Ed, morning to you.
Morning, both. Thanks for having me.
Lovely to see you this morning. For those people who do not know cycling the way you know cycling, can you put what he has achieved in some kind of context in terms of the sport?
Well, I guess Eddy Merckx is one of those names, you know, that had such a legacy in the sport. And I guess it was back in a time in cycling where it was easier, I guess, to amass so many stage wins. And I guess it was just one of those impossible records that nobody ever thought would get broken. And Mark Cavendish, you know, for a long time has been a huge name in British cycling. And, you know, I think the whole cycling world, it's just been amazing for everyone to kind of follow his journey, the highs, the lows. You know, you've just seen how he's broke his collarbone, he's suffered physical trauma, mental illness, and yet he's overcome all of that adversity at the grand age of 39 to finally do the business. And, you know, for what it's worth, I know I'm biased, but I think it's a story that transcends cycling, transcends sport, and yeah, there's a lot of happy people out there today.
I think you're bang on. Morning, it's Naga Red. When you saw Mark at his lower points, did he still have the ambition to get back into racing, even though he was being told, look, physically, emotionally, mentally, this isn't probably going to do you any good?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, you know, I've known Mark since 2001. And, you know, there's this idea that a champion always believes in themselves. And, yeah, I think, you know, through all the highs and the lows, there's always been this continuous thread. You know, even since he was a teenager, he always thought he was going to be the best sprinter in the world. And I guess now that's official. You know, you're right, he's had his ups and his downs. I remember being there in Harrogate. A lot of people remember when the Tour de France came to Britain. And, you know, Mark quite famously crashed out in front of everyone for the whole world to see. His adoring British public. And, you know, from that point onwards, he was quite often going into these big races, not as the favourite, but as the fella that's trying to fend off the next generation of super talents that are coming through. But he's always believed in himself, and I think we can all take a bit from that.
Do you know, speaking to him now, obviously he's won this record. Do you think that's it, or is is this just going to spur him on to go for even more? Because the man looks like he's relentless. He doesn't know when to stop.
Yeah, again, another really good question. I was thinking that myself this morning. I mean, theoretically, this is going to be the end. I believe his contract's up at the end of this year. He's going to be 40 next May. And, you know, he's not a spring chicken anymore. And there really is a tidal wave of youthful talent coming through the sport. That said, you know, anyone that watched the sprint closely yesterday saw that wasn't just his technical and tactical awareness that got him that win. He was strong. And when he did start leading the sprint out, the big favourite Philipsen was on his wheel in the slipstream and didn't really have an answer. So, you know, for what it's worth, I think he's probably got more stage wins in him this year in the Tour de France. And whilst there probably is signs of him slowing down, if he wanted to carry on for another year or two, I dare say there'd be a fair few teams that'd be looking to sign him up at the end of this year.
Ed, to give you your due, you in your own right are an incredible cyclist. You've got, what is it, 3 Olympic gold medals. Can you just give me a sense from your sport when you're lining up against Mark Cavendish? And I don't know whether in your career you have, whether he's been your direct rival. What's that like?
Yeah, he's what could you call him? It's an interesting relationship we've always had. As a junior, you know, when we're sort of coming up through the ranks together, you know, we all kind of gave up on our academic ambitions and we all lived together in Manchester. And, you know, we were a team. We worked for each other. Sometimes it was our job to work for Mark for a stage win. Sometimes he'd be working for us. So I was very, very fortunate that I've never really been working against him, and I'd never want to be in that position. That said, you know, one of my favourite memories of Mark is the time that I spent with him around the Olympics in Rio. We were both preparing for the track events in the velodrome. And, you know, I was fresh from a back operation myself. And, you know, Mark was this international superstar and we kind of gone different ways and met back together after all those years. And, yeah, he was doing a lot for me. He put me up in accommodation with him. He did sort my meals out. He used to ferry me backwards and forwards to the track for physio. And, yeah, he's a good fella. And to answer your question, I'm very glad that I never really had to race against him in a serious capacity.
It's been really nice hearing your thoughts today, and it's like an insight into a sport which for outsiders sometimes is a bit of a mystery, but he is a true champion. Lovely to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, bud.